We are addicted to true crime. From serial killers, Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Richard Ramirez, to unsolved murders, UFO sightings, the Zodiac Killer. Step into my world. Step into Solved or Not, the True Crime Paranormal Podcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Solved or Not, the True Crime Paranormal Podcast. Yes, we are back for another video. Yes, we did take a little bit of time off, just to kind of relax, unwind, and but we're back. We're back for another exciting video. Well, not video, but it's like an exciting podcast. Like, this is just absolutely exciting. Aren't you excited? I'm excited. I'm just kidding. It's not, whatever. But I'm back for another episode here at Solved or Not, the True Crime Paranormal Podcast. And the reason I say paranormal is because there's true crime, but then there's also like that paranormal side too. You know, there's like, it creates the ghosts, it creates the demons, and it creates just this weird vibe, craziness to everything. Oh yeah. So we are back with another episode here. And if you're new to the podcast, hello. If you are an old listener to the podcast, I know we have like 3 episodes out, but that's okay. If you're an old listener to the podcast, welcome back. And like I said, if you're new, hello. What we do here in the podcast is we talk about something that happened in history, I guess. History, yeah, something like that. Something that happened, true crime. We break it down, give our own opinion. That's what we do here at the True Crime, Solved or Not. So we're going to dive right into it. And we're going to dive into the Girl Scout murders. Dun dun dun. Everybody who's anybody knows about the Girl Scout murders. If you don't know about the Girl Scout murders, you need to know about the Girl Scout murders. Everybody who's anybody knows about it. And it's such a weird, scary case. A weird and scary at the same time, because you have the innocence of going to Girl Scout camp, or you have the innocence of going to camp in general, and that innocence is basically taken away from you, just in that sense, just in that, like, that act of what occurred on this night. And I have been to summer camp. I've been to a Bible camp or whatever. I guess you can call it a summer camp. But I've been to a Bible camp, and you're surrounded by a bunch of people, and you're all having fun, hanging out. We went to the lake. That was really fun. I've been camping like so many times. And the more that I read about this story, the more I was like, oh man, like, you can only just imagine what was happening at that time and what was going on and everything. And I was like trying to put myself in that moment, in that perspective. I don't have kids, obviously. And I was just thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, you know, what would happen in this situation with any parent, you know, when you're finding out about this stuff. And I just tried to put myself in the perspective, in the mindset of this, and you really can't. If you don't have kids, you're listening to this podcast, you don't have kids, maybe you have like siblings, you know, younger brothers, younger sisters, and you try and like put yourself in that position, you really can't. It's or like if you don't have younger siblings like brothers, sisters, you really can't put yourself in that perspective. It doesn't happen. But we're going to jump right into the Girl Scout murders. Now, the murders took place on June 13th, 1977, which seems like a long time ago. We're in 2022. Seems like so long ago. But what's really funny is it's actually not that long ago. Let's see. 2022. I pull up my handy dandy calculator over here. 2022 minus 1977. It's 45 years ago. 45 years ago. Okay. That's not that long ago. History is so weird. The way it works is so weird. You read about this stuff and you're like, wow, that was like 1940 something. That's so long ago. And geez, we're in 2022. I'm 25 years old. It really wasn't that long ago. If you really think about it, it really wasn't long ago. What was that? 45 years ago? Yeah, it's 45. 1977. 45 years have gone by. Wow. Can you imagine how old these girls would have been? That's nuts. So, the murder happened sometime between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. when somebody entered the Kiowa unit and molested 3 girls who were asleep in tent number 7. Now, really think about that. I'm going to take, during the podcast, I'm going to take, time to, fathom this and, think about this. Somebody entered the Kiowa unit, killed and molested 3 girls who were asleep in tent 7. Now, you have to sit and, think about this for just 1 second. You know, you're at camp, supposed to have a great time, and all of a sudden, your life just takes a 360. Now, think about that for just a second. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, wherever you're listening to it, just think about that for a second. You really can't, can you? No, you can't. So the girls are named Michelle Geis, I think I'm pronouncing her name right, Doris Milner, and Lori Farmer. Around 6 a.m., Carla Wilhite discovers sleeping bags on the side of the trail leading to the showers. So everything that happened in that time period wasn't discovered until 6 in the morning. So if it started at 2 a.m., 2 to 6 was when all of this occurred, which that itself is already creepy. And then one of the camp counselors discovers sleeping bags on her way to the showers. Now, I look at photos of all these cases that I've researched and everything, and some of these photos, you can't even look at them for a long period of time. You can't even look at them because you think about it and you're just like, man, I wouldn't even be able to be in that situation, let alone wanting to be in that situation. You're a camp counselor. Your job is to look out for campers, to look out for, you're responsible for that camp. And then this happens, and it's like, what do you do? How do you, okay, I know this sounds like really bad, and I'm not bashing the camp counselors for this whatsoever. But it's like, how do you go on with your life? You don't. You don't. There is actually a documentary that got released. It's called Someone Cry for the Children or something. Somebody Cry for the Children. I've seen the documentary. And the camp counselor actually comes out and like starts talking and everything, and she starts crying and all this. And you can't blame her at all whatsoever. You really can't. You feel for her. I think it was Carly Wilhite. You feel for her because she had to see this. She had to go through this. And it's like, wow, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to do it. So she was going to the showers. This is around 6 a.m. And on the trail, she sees sleeping bags. Okay. And in those sleeping bags, she sees the ultimate horror. So she sees the bodies of these 3 little girls. And she immediately, her first reaction, immediately run back to camp and notify everybody. That's what you do in that situation. You don't do anything else. And finally, police arrive at 7:30 a.m. and the investigation starts. The camp is quickly evacuated. What's really sad about this is this was the first day that this camp opened up for the season. This is the first day that it opened up for the season. And it was also the last day that it was opened. So somebody knew that this camp was going to be open. Somebody knew that people were going to be there. Camp was going to go on. And then all of a sudden, what takes place? So it's the first and the last day. Very upsetting. Very, very upsetting. When you go to camp, and I still kind of like remember my camp days. When you go to camp, and I'm not talking like camp like with your families or anything, you're in a tent or you're in a big RV. I'm talking like tent on the ground, sleeping bag in the tent, expose the elements. When you go to camp or you go to summer camp, you know, where you have cabins and everything and all your, what are they called? Amenities or whatever they're called with you. You're supposed to feel happy. You're supposed to feel like I'm with my friends. I'm going to make new friends. This is going to be great. But no, not in this sense. They were happy. Of course. You're meeting new friends. You're meeting new people. And then all of a sudden this takes place. And it's like, great. It really changed the idea of going to summer camp. And it really changed the idea of what it meant for safety. Like after this, like people were afraid to go outside. They were afraid to go to camp. They were afraid to send their kids to camp. And with good reason. So we're going to dive into the backstory of these 3 girls. And we're going to see if we can make it through this. Because it's very sad. Like I said, I don't have any kids. I don't have any younger siblings or anything, but it's still like, it's still really emotional. It grabs you, and it's like you you want to feel like what it was like at that moment. Well, not really. No, that's not the right words. You want to feel like, I don't know. You just want to like put yourself in that position. Or, no, not even that. Scratch what I said. Anyways, we're gonna dive into the girls, into the backstory of the girls now. We're gonna start off with Michelle Geiss. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it as a goose, goes, whatever. Guse, Geiss, I guess. Michelle Guess. So apparently Michelle previously spent the year before at the camp. It was called Camp Scott, and was looking forward to be with her fellow campers again. So this goes back to making friends, making new friends, and seeing your old friends again that you saw the year before, knowing that you're going to be back at camp, everything's going to be great. I guess it was a week camp. It wasn't a summer camp. I think it was like a week one, like a week span of one. And she wanted to be with her friends again, which is great. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. She was an active and athletic girl, so very, very active, I guess. And so here I have her last letter that she wrote to home, and I have like letters to all the girls too. So her last letter reads, "Dear Aunt Karen, how are you? I'm fine. I'm writing from camp. We can't go outside because it is storming. Me and my tent mates are in the last tent in our unit. My tent mates are Denise, Milner, and Lori Farmer. My room is in shades of purple. Love, Michelle." Her parents apparently did not celebrate their anniversary because Michelle had actually died one day before it. That's kind of like when somebody loses a loved one on like Christmas, before Christmas, or any sort of like holiday. That holiday becomes dark, cursed, evil, terrible holiday. You don't even want to touch that holiday. And you don't want to celebrate your anniversary anymore with good reason, because your daughter lost her life a day before that. Parents, any parents that are listening to this, try and put yourself in that situation. It's asking a lot, but maybe like try and put yourself in that situation. And if you can't, it's totally understandable. But if you can, I don't have an answer for you on that one. But yeah, it's really strange. Strange feeling. All right, we're moving on to Denise Milner. Denise Milner was 10 years old at the time. The oldest was 10. I think Denise was the oldest. It was like 10, 9, and 6, I believe. And that just tears you apart. It really just tears you apart. She was 10 years old at the time. She was excited about going to camp. But the idea of leaving her mom and sister home made her anxious. She was a straight A student, never been to camp before, but sold enough Girl Scout cookies to attend the camp with her friends. Okay, so this is kind of funny. This was still a time period when they sold Girl Scout cookies to get certain prizes. I guess I don't know if do they still do that. I have no idea. They have like little Girl Scout cookies things, or for Boy Scouts it used to be popcorn. We sold popcorn. That was really fun. I used to go up to. Wow, I just remember this. I used to go up to houses and be like, "Hi, do you want to sell popcorn?" And my sister had to be like, "No, it's buy popcorn, not sell popcorn." That was always funny. She never wanted to go back out selling popcorn to me again. But I don't know if Girl Scouts like still do this. If they still have things that they go out and sell cookies or popcorn or something to get like certain prize, like bicycles. Now I'm sure it's like iPads and all that shit. Let's see. At the last minute, her friends backed out and she went to camp alone. Now that's really shitty. Your friends are like, "Oh, hey, let's go to camp. This is going to be really fun." And then right before, her friends back out and she was by herself. But she made new friends, which is not bad. This is actually really cool. She had been accepted to Carver Middle School in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a magnet school created for exceptional children. Now, I actually have to look up something because I have no idea. I kind of have an idea of what magnet school is, but let's see. I imagine it's a school like you have to be at a certain GPA to get into. You have to be like a certain, I don't want to say IQ, but just like a certain GPA to get into it. Let's see. Magnet school. What does magnet mean in school? A magnet school is an entire school with a special focus. Okay, yeah, see. A magnet program is a program in a public school that usually focuses on a special area of study such as science, the performing arts, or career education. Wow. That's pretty cool. Do they still have magnet schools? I don't think they do. What is the point of a magnet school? They're designed to attract students from multiple districts and career goals. Oh, that's really cool. Sweet. I had no idea. I didn't know that. You learn new things every day. She loved watching television and playing with her sister, as obviously most kids do, obviously. I'm still stuck in a magnet school thing. That's kind of cool. So I do have her last letter as well. And I'm going to read it here. It says, "Dear Mom, I don't like camp. It's awful. The first day it rained. I have 3 new friends named Glenda, Lori, and Michelle. Michelle and Lori are my roommates. Mom, I don't want to stay at camp for 2 weeks. Oh, it's 2 weeks. My bad. I want to come home and see Cassie and everybody. Your loving child, Denise Milner." That's really sad. She didn't like camp. And it was her first time to camp too. First time. And unfortunately, her last time. Which is like mean to say that it was her first time and her last time. But, think about that too. It's your first time to camp, first time to be making new friends, all happy and everything. Summer camp. Well, 2-week camp, my bad. 2-week camp. And it's your last. Your first real summer camp. 2-week camp, sorry. Your first 2-week camp. Summer 2-week camp. And you're not sure about going. Your friends back out at the last minute. and all of a sudden, it becomes your last. Like, yeah, it's just upsetting. Just absolutely upsetting. Ugh. This case really, this case, honestly, of the ones that I've done, this case really pisses me off. It actually does, kind of. So we get on to the last girl. Her name was Lori Farmer, and Lori was 8 years old. Oh, sorry, what did I say? The youngest was 6. No, the youngest was 8. My bad. I think, yeah, something like that. She was 8 years old, and she couldn't decide to go to Camp Scott or another camp sponsored by the Tulsa area YMCA. So she was undecisive on which camp to go to. And in the end, her mother decided for her. And she decided on Camp Scott. And according to the documentary Somebody Cry for the Children, she has regretted it ever since. And no one can blame her. Nobody can blame her. She was the youngest girl at the camp and looked forward to meeting new friends, as all kids are. Kids are weird because they think that everybody is their friend. They think that everybody's like all friendly and everything. And she was just looking forward to meeting new friends. And there's nothing wrong with that. Her father was Dr. Charles Farmer. He was an emergency room director at Tulsa's St. John's Medical Center. So he was very, very high up there. So then we get to the day of the murders. And this is where it gets really, really sad. So first of all, you have the camp counselor that finds the sleeping bags. That's already creepy enough. And already like, ugh, I don't know what to do. Wouldn't know what to do about that. What was really terrible was that the parents did not know what happened at the camp. They only know that there was an accident or an incident at the camp. They weren't told what it was. Now, I've seen this situation so many times in tornado situations. Like when a tornado like goes through a town, city, whatever. You hear stories of the parents trying to find their kids. The emergency room people, they can't tell you a damn thing because either they don't know or they just don't know. So the parents really didn't know what took place at the camp, only that it was an accident. And then they found out later on. And it's like it's a stab to the heart. So I do have Lori's letter, of course. And she's the last girl on here, so I do have a letter. And it reads, Dear Mom and Dad, and Misty and Joe and Chad and Kathy. That was a mouthful. We're just getting ready to go to bed. It's 7:45. We're at the beginning of a storm and having a lot of fun. I've met 2 new friends, Michelle Geis and Denise Milner. I'm sharing a tent with them. It started raining on the way back from dinner. We're sleeping on cots. I couldn't wait to write. We're all writing letters now because there's hardly anything else to do. With love, Lori. Hardly anything else to do. It was storming, I guess, like a motherfucker that night. and rain was coming down and whatnot. I read these letters, and I don't know if these letters ever got sent out. I'm pretty sure they did. Eventually, or the parents found them. I can't remember. And I read these letters, and it's like there was happiness. There was definitely happiness in these letters, obviously. And you hear about this, and you read these letters, and it's like that was when they were the most happiest. They were surrounded by friends, having a great time, and all of a sudden this takes place. And all of a sudden this takes place. And it's like it makes you appreciate life a lot more. Reading about these cases and reading about people's stories, it makes you appreciate life like a lot better, you know? Because these girls didn't know what was about to happen. They didn't know it was about to take place. So this is like the message of this episode. It's just appreciate life, you know? So we're going to get into the evidence and the aftermath and everything that was found. So when police came in and investigated the scene, obviously, what do you think they found? Oh boy. That's... Ugh. The wooden floor platform of the tent was covered in blood. The murderer attempted to clean the floor with towels and mattresses. So this seems like it was a psycho kind of thing. If you've seen the movie Psycho, cleaning like everything up with cleaning the crime scene with like towels and mattresses and whatnot. And when they went to where the girls were found, they found like a bunch of every serial killer I've noticed has a mark that they leave behind. Something that, the Zodiac killer obviously has like those signs and symbols. We'll get to that episode eventually. Everybody like has their insignia. That's what I was looking for, insignia. And this one, their insignia was stealing glasses, like women's glasses. I think it was either sunglasses or prescription glasses. It was prescription glasses. And they found these prescription glasses on a previous case that involved rape of two pregnant women. They linked the two together and they brought it back to this case, and they're like, wait a minute, these two are the same. So upon investigating where the bodies were found, they found a flashlight and they found my notes got ended here. I'm trying to remember. They found a flashlight and they found, I think it was a crowbar, I believe. Sorry, I didn't finish my notes on this one. That's not good. Anyways. So I guess they did find a flashlight that had fingerprints inside of it, but they couldn't really link that to this for some strange reason. I guess if you're changing, it's one of those old flashlights that have like the handle on the top, and there's like a button that you push on the the little top. We used to have one actually. It had like a big ass battery in the background, and I guess you have to change out the screening or filter or something like that. They found that over there. So this was a report that was made by one of the counselors, and this is bone chilling too. This is a report made by one of the camp counselors. I don't know if it was what's her face? Oh, excuse me. I don't know if it was Carla, but one of the camp counselors. This was hours before this took place. Was walking around, checking cabins, checking camp, or checking units, I guess you want to call them, trying to get girls to calm down because everybody's being rowdy. And she reported hearing a guttural sound coming from the woods. Now that's already spine like, ugh, like really a guttural sound coming from the woods. And she didn't think anything of it, you know. She just thought it was like a bear, like animal of some sort. But it was the kind of sound that really an animal couldn't have made. Maybe. And so she didn't think anything of it. It was kind of spooky. You know, you're in the middle of the woods and you hear a guttural sound. So what do you think? Something creepy is going to happen? Something creepy is going to come out and get you? That's what anybody would think, honestly. So she didn't think anything of it and just let it go. I'm trying to like put myself in this environment, and it's really hard to do. But at the same time, it's really like it's kind of easy to do too. It's like you want to think about this. You want to think about being in that environment and how would that go, you know? It's really creepy to think about. And like I said, it changed the way that summer camp and camps in general, like people were very, very like, was it adamant about sending their kids to summer camp. And it just changed the way that camps worked in a negative way, actually. So there were obviously suspects. You know, one of the girls was actually molested. So they automatically, you know, go to any criminal that has a history of that. And they couldn't match any DNA. They couldn't do anything. But there was one individual who fit the bill, and local law enforcement and mostly anybody settled on the man named Gene Leroy Hart, who was a Native American. He was a Cherokee Indian. And they instantly connected him to it because upon investigation, like I had mentioned, they found glasses, like women's prescription glasses. And they searched the area because it had to be from somebody who knew the area and somebody who was nearby. So like, okay, we got to look around, check the area, see if we can find anything. Sure shit, they find a cave. And in that cave was a bunch of women's prescription glasses. There was also a photo of two women or two photos of women, and those were actually the women that were raped previously. They were pregnant at the time, and they were raped previously. So all of this tied together, and he was like the main suspect. Everybody was after him. This was the biggest manhunt in Oklahoma. It's like a dark cloud over Oklahoma, pretty much. And he was already a convicted rapist, kidnapper, burglar. He was a 2-time prison escapee. Like, this guy had a track record. And he was a known suspect, and he was the known suspect. Nobody else like came close to him. So, like I said, this is the biggest manhunt in Oklahoma history. Everybody was on the lookout for him. I'm sure all 50 states were on the lookout for him. Until eventually, they found him at a medicine lodge, and they arrested him, took him in, charged him, and I believe he wasn't executed. He died of a heart attack. That's right. He suffered a heart attack in jail, which, in my opinion, I'm kind of glad. I guess it was a major heart attack too. And you shouldn't wish that on anybody, but when it comes to this, when it comes to this event, this scenario, this case, even stuff like that, it's like, yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad he got caught. I'm glad he went to jail. And I'm glad he perished in jail too. He seemed like a terrible individual. And he kind of deserved what he got. But not these little girls. So a little something about myself when it comes to this case. A little something about myself. When it comes to children, this is going to sound mean. It's going to sound really dark. But when it comes to children, I personally am not very fond of children. Especially children who are loud and noisy and rowdy and screaming and for no reason whatsoever. The children that I would get along with are ones who are actually like creative. There are children out there who beg for their tablets, beg for their phones and everything. I hate those children. I'm not going to lie. But this was 1977. Clearly they didn't have any of that stuff. And one of the girls even got it accepted to a magnet school. That's awesome. So those kids were going somewhere. So when I say I don't like kids, I don't not like all kids. There are some that are, they look like they're going somewhere. Or sound like they're going somewhere. I get that kids like ask like so many questions. But, we're always constantly asking questions. But there are some kids like that annoy me. Not gonna lie. And there's some kids that are like, wow, he or she is full of surprises. Like, holy shit. Like the magnet school girl. Jeez. I couldn't think of it. Like she was obviously going somewhere. She was obviously creative. And that ended in 1977. That ended. Today she would have been, oof, at least like what, 50 something, 40 something, roughly. Yeah. And their lives were taken away just like that. And it's very depressing. So this episode was very depressing. And it was very depressing, like researching this episode too. Because you hear about these things and then you go to research them and you're just like, oy, like, do I even want to do this? But I wanted to do it. And I wanted to say my opinion about it and get it done, I guess. But if you have kids, try and think about that. Think about sending them to camp and making sure they're okay. I mean, we live in a time nowadays where cell phones exist, tablets exist. Your children can just call you. We didn't have that back then. You can just go to camp and like call your loved ones. Unless you had like a landline or a flip phone. Make sure you get service. But they didn't have that back then. It just wasn't there. So that's my message is make sure your kids are okay. Because you as a parent do not know if this can happen. And apparently on June 13th, 1977, it did. Thank you guys so much for listening to Solved or Not. This was truly a emotional episode. I didn't cry or anything, but it was just very emotional. Just it gets to you. You get attached, you know. But thank you so much for listening to this episode. It was nice. It was very interesting. And we will be back with another great episode. And I will see you all next time.